Grievous enters the fray. Anakin takes his next steps down the Jedi path. Coruscant is attacked and more as the Sky Guys are back to recap Season 3 of the Clone Wars 03.
All right, we are back here on the Sky Guys podcast. Micro Month continues as we wrap up our journey through Clone Wars 03, Season 3 today. Pete Consadori, unfortunately, cannot be with us here. He got stuck trying to clean up the mess that was left behind on the last battle that Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting on. But we got it back from the foxhole here. Nick Fraietta is back with us. Nick, how are you?
It's like, I'm back. Pete's gone. We can't get us back together anymore, huh?
Yeah,
I'm doing well. Very excited to talk about Clone Wars 03.
Yep. So we are recording here. Also, is here one of the two constants of this journey besides me. Max Brower is back with us for the finale of Clone Wars 03. Max, how are you?
Good, Mike. Happy to be back. And yeah, we're switching out Peter for Nick tonight. So a little bit of a different squad, but happy to get different viewpoints.
Yeah, absolutely here. And since Pete's not here, I'll point out that if you want to subscribe to Sky Guys, you can do so Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Amazon, all usual suspects. Simply search for the Sky Guys, your favorite podcast platforms, final episodes there. And there's a lot of fun here, Nick, in the off season. Now we've gone through the final season of Bad Batch. There's some fun stuff coming up.
Yeah, what a season it was.
Yeah.
I can't believe Omega died. And I can't believe we're mid-May and the Yankees are undefeated.
Yeah. That's a historic start there, Max.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. If only. I wish.
Yep, here. And we're also pointing out here that, Nick, if you want to follow us on social media, how can I do that?
You can follow at Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and TikTok.
Yep. We also have the YouTube version, Mike Phillips on YouTube. We get the video version of the podcast here. We have all our fun graphics and props. And Max, this is fresh from the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar for 2023. I got Lego Omega here.
Oh, look at that. Is
Yeah,
she?
right.
They also have like the shorter legs, right? Because she's a child.
Yeah, she has the shorter legs.
It's always good when Lego has good attention to detail, which I'd say they typically do. But the little things definitely count.
Max, you a big Lego Star Wars guy?
You know, I used to have a bunch of the Star Wars Legos when I was younger, and I liked the video games when I had played them previously. I don't still have them, but I can't say I dislike them. I think they're still some of the best Lego sets that come out, just in terms of the detail and the size and scale of the models.
I have a few I have not built yet. I have a couple of the Ahsoka ones, like I have not gotten to yet, but that's exciting. That's maybe time for season 2. I'll have them built.
That's awesome. What Ahsoka models do they have?
They put out her ship. They put out a new version of the Ghost.
Okay, very nice. Does her ship have the rotating blade thing?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on that here. And Nick, Pete and I have banding off the air. We might do a Lego Star Wars podcast maybe at some point this off season because this is the 25th anniversary of the Lego Star Wars being set up.
So in terms of what now? In terms of
First sets came out 25 years ago.
that's nothing to do with the games, right?
Nope. The actual first Lego sets came out, and then we sort of took up the history of Lego Star Wars.
Wow.
Well, that's got to be one of their, if not the biggest, one of Lego's biggest collaborations, right?
Yeah, I'd say them or Harry Potter are probably the two biggest I can think of.
Yeah.
But I think Star Wars, they get more in depth.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't have a Lego Star Wars, but I do have this very cool Din Djarin plastic model Mandalorian with the Darksaber included, Beskar spear, which I know doesn't really make sense because when he gets the Darksaber, he doesn't have the Beskar spear, but I think it looks cool. So they also have those are kind of like Legos, but the Legos are different.
Yeah. And those of you who listened to us last week know that we are recording this well in advance of release date in mid-May. This is February 5th. We are recording this here. So the Super Bowl's not even happened yet. But in lieu of news here, we're gonna do another Bad Batch prediction here, see how horribly wrong we've gotten here. So Nick, I'll give you the floor here. Who is the MVP of season 3 of Bad Batch?
Omega. I don't know how hot of a take that is. Maybe it's not hot of a take, but I feel like she's going to overcome a lot of obstacles to be set free and really grow as a character and a leader in the season.
Yeah, so Max, who do you think is the most valuable character of season 3 of Bad Batch?
I was going to say Omega 2, but just to be a little bit different, I'm going to go with Crosshair. I feel like they give him a nice redemption arc in the prison, and he'll end up playing a big role in the plot.
I'm going to say Back from the Dead Tech is the MVP of the season.
Okay. I hope so.
And I feel like I just get this is before the season comes out here. There's no way they're leaving him dead. This is a kid's cartoon. He will come back.
I hope so. I always like Duck.
All right, so let's get into Clone Wars 03 here. But Nick, since you were not with us for seasons 1 and 2, let us know like what you thought of the first 2 seasons.
I definitely enjoyed the watch. For me, I don't know how you guys tell, or if you tell when an episode ends and another one starts, which I think is a good thing. It's kind of a smooth transition. It almost seems like a different scene of a movie. So I definitely enjoy that aspect of it. It's a lot more action paced, a lot less narrative focused, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending on how you want to see it. But I enjoyed it, and to me, it's more of a have it on in the background type of show, and I don't mind that. Like, it's not really, you're not missing any dialogue. It's just a lot of cool moves with lightsabers and guns and fighting.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that was a fun change of pace for us. We were focusing so much on the like the narrative. Here's what's going on. Who's saying this? What does this mean? I was like, oh, cool action.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we're going into season 3 of Clone Wars 03 here. Nick's going to share later on his additions to the MVP board and his grades of the first 2 seasons. Sent those to me offline, so I have added them in here. But what about Clone Wars 03, which is actually aired, I believe, Max, I think this is March of 2005. This one comes out.
I think that sounds about right. This was right before, March of 2005. It aired over a 4-day span, which I think is like right before Revenge of the Sith. And obviously, the plot leads directly into the opening scene in Revenge of the Sith, Battle of Coruscant. So I think the whole series is kind of trying to bridge the gap, set that movie up, and this most directly does that.
Yeah, so let's talk real quick before we dive into this storyline here. I think the big difference between the first 2 seasons and this one here, because obviously season 1 and 2, the episodes are shorter. You get more of them. You get like 3 to 5 minutes action pace here. This is 5 12-minute episodes. So like we're kind of halfway to what Clone Wars ends up being here in terms of like model here, and we get a little more narrative focus here this week, Max. I think it's interesting because it does feel like they are trying more seriously here to bridge the gap between what they started with in the movie.
Yeah, I think that the purpose of this season is really to give you some background and develop the plot threads. And obviously, you can't do that in little 5-minute bursts. So they need to flesh things out and they need to have this longer narrative. And I think they do a good job of that, stringing the episodes together, kind of creating this interesting thread on the snow planet whose name I don't know, and then obviously the Battle of Coruscant, and just like building it into something interesting that's not just like action, 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 which I haven't complained about. I've enjoyed it, obviously, rewatching it, but it definitely has a little bit more meat to it this third season.
And Nick, what do you think about the difference in the third season when you got these longer episodes opposed to the shorter ones you watch for 1 and 2?
Definitely more narrative driven. As that everything I was saying earlier about how it's like a background, leave it on, you're not going to miss anything type show. I still think that's true, but to a much less extent in this season. It's a lot more narrative focused and a lot more of an actual goal rather than just 5 minutes of random action. So that's what this season came down to, and it's set up pretty nice. If this is how they left Clone Wars overall and never dug back into it, it does set up Revenge of the Sith, which is, I guess, the goal, right? Is to take you from 2 to 3. It does do that.
Yeah, it also gives you, in my opinion, a very fun storyline with Grievous. And as I hinted last week with you and Pete, Max, like the cough is explained finally.
Yeah, I think they really show Grievous to be as much of a force as he appears in episode 3 and more. And they kind of expand on his like predator-like introduction in the second season, and they show him basically single-handedly abducting the Chancellor.
Yeah, he's mowing down another bunch of Jedi here, and Shaak Ti kind of dies, kind of doesn't. Like, I mean, Max, you know, like Shaak Ti, I think has died like 6 different ways in canon, and none of them actually stick.
Yeah, she was in one of the deleted scenes in episode 3 where Grievous kills her. Here she's alive because at the end she's like, "Oh, I failed." So we know that she lives, but she's abducted. She's almost killed. Uh, and he fights with 4 arms. Remember that was something we were talking about last week, where Grievous he fought with only 2 hands and his feet, and Peter was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." No, now he's got the full 4 arms.
Yeah, for sure here. And Nick, in terms of the final seasons here, I think I noticed here at this season, we're kind of getting into the plot a little bit here, is we get the first real time jump in this show because like the first 21 episodes are basically like you could say would take place in like 2 weeks of the start of the Clone Wars here. And then the first episode, they finally make Anakin a full-fledged Jedi. He loses the Padawan brain, and then we have a flash forward. It's almost the end of the war, so we skipped a lot of time.
We did. We did. And I want to talk real quick because you had mentioned that this and I don't want to like jump away from what you're trying to say. Yes, you're right. There's a big time jump that's definitely noticeable, but I want to talk a little bit about canon and deleted scenes in that deleted scenes are canon, which is weird to me. But are they all canon? That's what's weirder to me. Like her death is Grievous killing her. And like, for example, there's a deleted scene in episode 2, I believe, where Anakin has dinner with Padme's parents. And there's a deleted scene in episode 3 where Padme meets with all the other senators to start up the rebellion. And they're all considered canon, even though they weren't shown.
Yeah.
Is that weird to you guys?
It's like they kind of have ideas and they try to change their mind. They come up with a better one.
But it's still canon. So it's like they're just not showing it, but it's still like we're still going to count this. We're just not going to show it to you. It's just strange to me.
You would think that a deleted scene is something that never happened, right? That's why the
Yeah, exactly.
So that is curious to me that it's canon. And it's even more interesting. Well, I guess if you think about episode 3 versus the Clone Wars, right? So at the end of Clone Wars 03, Shaak Ti is like roped up with that like electric rope thing. So she's not dead. Whereas in the deleted scene of episode 3, she's killed by Grievous. She's like caught in the force field, from what I remember. So you can't really square those two scenes. And at one point in time, the Clone Wars 03 was canon, right? Like before Disney took over. So based on what you're saying, Nick, they were both canon. Like she's not dead, but then she's on the ship, and then she's dead on the ship. Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so I guess that leads to my next question, which it sounds like the answer is yes. When this came out, it was intended to be canon, right?
I think
so.
I think before Disney took over, wasn't mostly everything canon unless it was designated an alternate universe or something.
Yeah, I think so. And then when Disney took over, they said everything is legends and had canon just be the 6 movies and the Clone Wars show.
Right. The 08 Clone Wars show.
The other, yeah. Clone Wars as compared to Clone Wars.
Yeah. And to add to the confusion of the Shaak Ti debate here, I did look up on the Wikipedia what happens there is that like they retcon the scene of her like being killed by Grievous. Is her death now officially comes at the hands of Darth Vader at the temple in Order 66. And I believe Clone Wars 08 shows like a flash, like a Anakin.
Is that another deleted scene?
I guess they never shot it, but like they in Clone Wars 08 they canonized it because they had a back on Mortis and Anakin sees his future. He sees Shaak Ti getting impaled by his lightsaber.
No, that is a deleted scene. She says, "What is it, Skywalker?" And he goes right behind her.
Yeah.
That's another deleted scene. So she's killed twice in 2 separate deleted scenes.
Yeah, and 08 decided
the same way too.
08 decided to decide which one was canon, which isn't.
Oh, this is in Yoda's vision.
Yeah.
This is not on Mortis. This is in Yoda's vision. You can see Shaak Ti being killed. This is like the end of episode 6, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, Star Wars. This was a Filoni saying we're going to solve this problem in canon and just sort of declare how she actually died.
It solves it. It was a big mystery. I mean, she's a cool character. Like that whole fighting scene with all the Magna Guards in this one, that was pretty cool. So I'd rather her go out defending the Jedi Temple than just be like tossed aside by Grievous.
Yeah, and to close the book on Nick's deleted scenes thing, I do think it's also interesting here that like the only time we see Mon Mothma in Revenge of the Sith is technically a deleted scene where like Padme's forming the rebellion. That's
That's
canon,
the one I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah.
which that makes also is very weird. And that's how we got Genevieve O'Reilly in the role, but she's played in Andor, in Rogue One, Ahsoka. Like that's where she came from.
That I did not know, but that seems like a pretty important deleted scene. I'm surprised they took that out.
Yeah, and that I've seen that scene like so many times, as if I like remember it in the movie, but it's obviously not in the movie.
It's on the DVD extras, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my sense is here. It's like I think they made Padme look too strong, and they took it out for that reason because like the whole Padme arc was like she was weepy by Anakin because she was pregnant, which is a terrible arc, terrible writing by Lucas. But
The woman who played Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi is still alive.
yeah. Oh, did I know that? All right,
Do you guys think that, I guess it's technically Legends, but something that was sort of striking to me is that the last episode with the Battle of Coruscant, that kind of fits into Clone Wars 08. Because in Clone Wars 08, we never see the Battle of Coruscant. It's just like we hear that it's happening. And then the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, we know that it's happening in the sky, but we never see it on the ground. But we know that the Chancellor's been abducted. So I guess it's Legends, but in theory, that last episode could still fit into the Star Wars universe. It could still be, this is what the Battle of Coruscant was actually like. This is Grievous abducting. This is why we lost contact with Shaak Ti. It's just, now we're actually seeing it fleshed out. And it wouldn't be inconsistent with anything else necessarily that happens in the series.
the only
Only difference is that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think you might be on the same thing I am, is that the Grievous cough gets created in that scene.
The Grievous cough and you're saying that he already had that, or
he has it throughout Clone Wars 08. He didn't have it in 03 until Mace Windu.
That's not what I was going to say, but you're right. I was going to say it's not inconsistent, but you just have to remember that Anakin and Obi-Wan go see Ahsoka right before.
No, that part.
That's not really inconsistent. That could still happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they do the last mission. That part I was going to say was a little bit inconsistent, but the actual battle itself. But yeah, I guess the cough is a good point too.
Yeah, the cough's the only problem with that theory. But like, if you like sort of imagine he was coughing throughout the entire Clone Wars 03, sure, this should work for the battle.
Hey, maybe he was sick.
It's sick. Now he's
a different cough, an unrelated cough.
Yeah.
He got better, and when he was finally better, he was like, "Oh, guys, I'm not coughing." And then all of a sudden, Mace Windu just crushes his ribs in his lungs.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about Grievous and talk about here, because obviously he's the big driver of Clone Wars 03. He's sort of the unstoppable force for the Separatists here. We see that he's basically leading missions to hunt down Jedi, and then we get him showing up on Coruscant at the end to lead the siege to capture the Chancellor here. He mows through a bunch of Jedi, some great fight scenes here. So, Nick, what do you think about here with Grievous, how he gets involved here with all the action?
I mean, he's a badass, right?
Yep.
The way to put it. I wonder also, it's obviously came out before Revenge of the Sith, and he didn't make his big screen debut into Revenge of the Sith. We all know that based on our animation to live action draft we did a couple months ago, or at this point, many months ago. But what I wonder is how many people in the stands when they were watching Revenge of the Sith were like, "Oh, that's Grievous. I know him from Clone Wars 03." Because I didn't even know Clone Wars 03 existed.
Show Max raised his hand to that question.
Yeah. I wonder how many people knew that. I'm sure a sizable amount, but like percentage-wise, probably pretty low. But I didn't, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I've been surprised listening to this how many people did not watch Clone Wars 03. Like, I always thought, oh, this is such a popular part of Star Wars, like everybody remembers it. No, maybe it was a little bit more under the radar than I thought at the time.
I think, Max, I think the issue is for me, like, if I was not a Cartoon Network kid, more of a Nickelodeon kid, and like, if I don't have Cartoon Network, I may not have been aware it existed in 2003.
That's fair. To be fair, I also was a Nickelodeon kid, but there was a time, and with like my parents' house, we didn't have Cartoon Network for a reason. Like, we didn't get that channel. There was still like basic cable at that time. So I think that's fair. That probably there are other kids who just like didn't have Cartoon Network. They wouldn't have known this existed.
And I got to a point, this came out in 03, so I was 11. And that's right when I was saying to myself, oh, I got to stop watching cartoons. Like, That's when I stopped watching SpongeBob, whatever it was, and started watching Drake and Josh, whatever they showed on Teen Nick, whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when I saw a
Yeah.
cartoon coming, I was shying myself away from it. Same with Clone Wars '08. I was 16. I wasn't going to be watching a cartoon. So that's why I didn't watch this stuff till I was a little bit older, or especially this. I was much older.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess it's the. I mean,
But I
you
didn't even know it
talked about,
existed.
that all makes sense to me. I just was surprised. Like I thought this was very popular back in the day, but I guess you're right that like you don't have as many like people our age. There probably were some people who watched it. Some people were like, "Oh, I'm done with cartoons. I'm watching like live action shows. I'm not going to bother with this stuff," until they didn't even know that it existed.
Yeah.
But I was psyched to see Grievous in the movies, just because of like how cool he was in Clone Wars '03, and this episode I think continues that. So you obviously see him like still kicking Ki-Adi-Mundi's ass at the beginning, and then I guess he doesn't single-handedly lead the Battle of Coruscant, right? Like he's got a giant droid army, but it's just him and fighting and trying to abduct Palpatine, and he takes on 3 Jedi plus the I guess they're not the Imperial Guard at this time, but the predecessors to the Imperial Guard plus clone troopers.
I will also say here, I'll point out on the Grievous front here, like I do think, like, call as a hot take, I think he's better here than he is in either '08 or Revenge of the Sith, because I think the horror vibes that this character has, like when he's just dropping out of the shadows, like he's a freaking Spider-Man, like ready to pounce on them. The scene where the Chanter's in his crowders, and all of a sudden you see Grievous drop his head down behind the window, like when he's talking, he's like, "Oh, I'm safe here. I got Jedi protecting me." Like the stuff like that. And he's like really physically more violent than he is in the movies, where he's like running away half the time when he gets cornered. Like I think I like this version of Grievous better, Max.
That's why I had a hard time ranking him when I was doing the bracket, because I was like, he's so good in Clone Wars '03. And other than the voice, which I had forgotten about when I was doing that bracket, I think he's just not as terrifying in the movies. Like he's fine. He's like a cool looking character, but here he is a force unto himself. And they give him like real, with like the lighting and the way that he appears, they give him real horror movie vibes.
Nick, what do you think about what do you think is the best version of Grievous?
It probably is this. I mean, he was, to be honest, I remember watching Revenge of the Sith and thinking he was cool, but I feel like the general public at the time, that's his opinions obviously changed, but the probably opinion of him was like, this is a weird character. They probably, a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people probably didn't like him when he first came to be. And here it seems like it's very hard to dislike a character if you at this stage in time. You're watching this I guess 2005. This came out, not '03, but you're watching this in 2005. Or I get the whole series is '03, but either way, it's hard to dislike this character. Whereas in Revenge of the Sith, it could be played as a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for? Like childish, not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
It's a little goofy.
He kind of has
A little goofy.
like the mustache twirling type villain, and I get that
Yeah.
vibe from him in Clone Wars '08 too. Whereas here he's like, he's kind of like Darth Maul, honestly, in Episode 1. Like he doesn't say much, but just the way he moves, the way he looks, the way that they introduce him is just so violent and terrifying that it's just cool, right? Versus like the other, again, I like his voice better in the later animated series and the movie, but it's like he just seems like kind of like a cartoony type villain. He's not really scary. It's like, ooh, he's got 4 arms and lightsabers. Like, okay, he's cool, but like, whatever.
Yeah. So I think Grievous here, we talked about him obviously here, like he just successfully kills a bunch of Jedi. He basically leaves Shaak Ti for dead. Then he grabs Palpatine. He's taken off here. And Mace Windu is clearly the MVP of Clone Wars '03 so far. Shows up again, tries to catch him, like crushes his rib cage and his lungs, and gives him the cough he has in Revenge of the Sith. So that's the end of Grievous in Clone Wars '03. But like very fun arrival for this character here. And I think like I feel bad watching the movie afterwards. I'm like, yeah, like they took this character down. Like Max, you were a Power Rangers kid when you were a kid?
Not really, no, but we're going with this.
I have to compare to this because Nick, I don't know if you watched the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers either.
A little, I did, but not much.
You remember Lord Zed?
Yeah.
Yeah, the second season, he was terrifying when he first showed up. Like he was like really like an evil badass, and a bunch of parents wrote in and said he's too terrified for my children, and then they dumbed him down. That's sort of what happened in the movie with Grievous.
Do you remember him? I had to look him up to see if I remember what he looked like. I do remember him now, yeah.
Parents wrote in that he was too terrifying and they made him less scary.
Yes.
That's lame.
Yeah, well, that's what was happening in 1995.
Ugh. Yeah, I was not a Power Rangers kid, but that's very sad.
It was very sad here. And let's go on to the Anakin storyline, which is the other main storyline in this year. Because obviously, I do think it's fun. We get like the random snippets of battles happening. It sets up the whole thing of Clone Wars, of the Resistance movie. Like, oh, there's battles going everywhere. You send our Jedi out to help with them. But we get Anakin and Obi-Wan, like Jedi Knight Anakin, heading off to this planet. I believe it's Nelvaan, but I'm maybe butchering the name here, where Anakin and Obi-Wan to basically disable a separatist thing here. And then they get roped into a mission where they're basically finding like some of the group's warriors have been taken by the separatists and basically turned into cyborgs, and Anakin has to deal with them. And then he gets into more of his like sort of like evil vibes, or has to tap into the dark side a little to sort of get them out of this situation here. So Nick, what do you think of the Anakin plot here in this season?
I think Anakin showed a lot of growth this season, and it really just came at once, if you will. Season 1 and 2, I don't think he had any growth really. He seemed like he was just playing the 2002 Hayden Christensen character, and then all of a sudden he was playing the 2005 Hayden Christensen character, which was a very mature version of Anakin. And I think that he was really good in this season, and this episode in particular.
I think about Anakin's plot here is he's trying to save the Nelvaan warriors.
So parts of this episode gave me strong Mortis arc vibes, and I think it's particularly the scene with the paint on the wall, where you like the guy like has the arm that's sort of him feeding into the dark side of the Force, and it morphs into Darth Vader, and it's kind of Anakin like seeing his future, channeling it a little bit. And it's I would agree with Nick that like for the most part he's kind of whiny Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker in the first two seasons, other than the Asajj Ventress portion. And I think it's building on that, and it's showing on the one hand he is becoming this very powerful, very respected Jedi Knight, but on the other hand he has this very dark, simmering anger within him, obviously, and it kind of shows him getting to latch onto that and to expand on that and to become that. And I think that's like it's a really nice way to set up episode 3. And it sort of makes the transition that you see in that movie where ultimately he does become Darth Vader. I think it introduces it very well.
Yeah, and Nick, before we move on here, what would you think about Rambo Anakin last week?
I mean, I don't know. I noticed it. I'll tell you that much. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I started laughing the first time I saw it. Like, of course they decided they went the Rambo right. They tried to shove in so many pop culture references the first 2 seasons. It was so funny.
He looks, or excuse me, sounds really bad in my opinion. But like, who's the voice actor for him?
At Lucas was the guy's name.
But didn't he play him a lot of different things, or no?
Oh, that's Matt Lanter playing a lot of different things. It's a different person.
No, games, I mean.
What?
He played him in all the games.
Did he?
He plays him in Battlefront, Battlefront 2, Force Unleashed, Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, he does. What do you know? But I agree with Nick. I mean, I think that was the general consensus last week, is that he just sounded so whiny.
Yeah, that might have been a direction thing, because like you do remember here, like Max made the point correctly that like this first 2 seasons in the beginning of the third, like he's really like right after episode 2, where he's still in the whiny teen mode, and like the war season makes him grow up a little bit.
I did think he sounded better this season than he did in the first and second season. Like this season, I felt like he spoke like slower and more deliberately and a little bit more pronounced. So I think it is a direction, but for the most part, like Rambo Anakin time did not enjoy his voice acting.
I also did think it was funny here when like he shows up with all the grubs, like when Obi-Wan and him haven't eaten in forever. And he's like, what is it? Lunch. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, it's like you said the force is in all living things. So I'm just gonna imbue myself with the force.
There's some good comedy.
They did have some moments here. And Nick, did you catch the cameo at the end of last week's Clone Wars?
You're gonna have to remind me.
Shaggy.
I didn't.
Shaggy's Ki-Adi-Mundi's Padawan gets killed by Grievous.
I mean, he looks like him, right? Is it? What?
It's actually inspired by him, and his name is actually Shaggy. Sorry, Shaggy.
What did they get? Like Matthew Lillard to play him or something?
He said it was inspired by Matthew Lillard here, but they drew the character the exact same way. And his name is actually Shaggy, as we found out last week. We were doing the podcast with Pete.
Oh, that's pretty funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so before we wrap things up here, let's talk about the noble connections to 03, from 03 to Revenge of the Sith here. And obviously, we have Grievous abducting Palpatine. This is the only time we've seen this on screen anywhere. It's been off screen in both the movie and our way. We get it on screen here. We get some of the battles off like on the planets here. Anything else notable you can think of that connects this to the movie?
So that part's really notable for me because I always assumed that since Palpatine was playing both sides, that he kind of just went, that he wasn't taken, that was just made up. More of a just like, oh no, he got me. Meanwhile, he's just like walking, you know?
Yep.
So it was just interesting to say. I always assumed that, but I guess, I mean, it could still be true, I guess, but I guess, maybe not.
He definitely tries to flee Grievous, but at the same time, like there's one scene where I think Grievous is fighting Shaak Ti or he's fighting all three Jedi, and Palpatine just kind of steps back into the shadows and just watches with like a smirk on his face, like, I know what's going on here. This is exactly what I want. Or like the beginning of the episode where he's like watching the battle unfold, just like sitting there, like he obviously is trying to play both sides, but there is still an air of just like, this is exactly what I want. That really comes through.
Is Grievous in on it?
I was about to ask that question here because
I don't think he is.
I thought Count Dooku was the only one who knew Palpatine was Darth Sidious. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I think. So Grievous must not have known any of it, which means it makes sense. Like he wouldn't just go voluntarily, and Grievous would be like, "Come on this way." He'd probably be more forceful, right? So I think Dooku's the only one who knew. I would imagine the other guy, the blue guy, knew too, but
Masamita, yeah.
I would imagine he knows too, but I don't know if that's confirmed.
No, he knows because at least in Clone Wars 08, there's a scene about like after Padme gives the big speech against the bill that Palpatine's just like, we got to let democracy continue just for a little bit longer. And that's sort of telling you like, oh, he knows.
Well, does he? I don't know if he knows specifically. Like he's a Dark Lord. Instead, he might know like, oh, like I have a bigger plan to like consolidate our power base. I mean, I know he's a Sith Lord at that point.
I think he's also in the scene where Yoda fights Darth Sidious. He's standing in the room where Yoda's like, oh, or should I say Darth Sidious? And then he leaves.
I assume by that point he knows. I'm not sure if he knows in the time of the Clone Wars fully what the picture is.
Yeah, I think he's in that scene. I think you're right.
But I also agree, though, that like Grievous definitely, in my opinion, did not know that like Palpatine and Sidious are one and the same. It definitely feels like this is a Count Dooku, like you only know what you need to know, and like you don't need to know this thing. Only I need to know that information.
Yeah,
right. Well, as far as Grievous knows, he's just he's fighting for the Separatists. He really believes in their cause.
Yeah, only Dooku knows it's basically like a power play for Palpatine to basically take over everything, and then like
the Grievous is really the leader of the Separatists if you think about it, because the two people above him are just not really into it. It's kind of they're playing and they're playing both sides.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it also gives you such a good the Clone Wars 08. You think about here with what does Dooku like gives you such a like great payoff to like when he dies in Revenge of the Sith, when like you see the look on his face. He realizes Palpatine played him and he screwed him because he knew they wanted Anakin to be his apprentice. It's like that always gets me. It's like now they realize I've seen the Clone Wars. Like, oh, like he got played so bad.
Yeah. That is something that you sort of miss in Clone Wars 03. And I understand it's different series, but something I always really liked about 08 was it adds a lot of nuance to conflict. Like it's not just, oh, the Republic are the good guys, the Separatists are the bad guys. It's like, well, the Republic is actually very corrupt and the Jedi have kind of lost their way and the Separatists may actually have a point here. Whereas in 03, it's just like, no, Jedi good, Republic good, Separatists bad. And I get it. Again, it's like an action series, but that is something that I missed going back to this is that like it's not as black and white, or sorry, it is more black and white.
Hashtag justice for Barriss Offee.
Hashtag justice for what was the center that's like killed that was like trying to make the peace treaty with Padme on one arc. Ugh.
Oh, I'm trying to remember because I know like Ahsoka's friends with her son.
Yes, Ahsoka's friends with her son.
Nick, do you remember who that senator is before I try and find it?
No.
Yeah, I gotta find the. Once I find the character, like once I'm on that random Clone Wars episode of season 4, where he and Ahsoka go find Death Watch, like that'll be my keyway. What the kid's name was?
Mina Bonteri.
Yes, her son's Lux.
Yes.
Lux was a moron.
Yeah. So speaking of Connection to Revenge of the Sith, more minor one is this is I think the first appearance of Commander Cody, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yes, that's a good call. He gets like one line basically. I think the first episode when they're on Nelvaan.
Yeah. He has like a comedic moment with Obi-Wan where Obi-Wan's just like, he's like, sir, the siege is going well. And Obi-Wan's just like, going well. We've been here for 3 months. He's like, yep, we're right on schedule. Something like that.
Nick, did you like the Cody pop up here?
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Yeah, it was fun. And I did think it was funny. It's like, yeah, we still got 2 more months to go. And this actually did a pretty good job depicting how like miserable war can actually be in the Star Wars universe.
True.
All right, let's sort of wrap this up here. We'll go to
Before we move to the MVPs, I have one more topic that I wanted to discuss. I think that now that we're done with this show, we've watched the whole thing. I think if they kind of mixed this show together with the 08 show, it would have been a great, phenomenal show. Think about like, imagine Clone Wars 08 and 03 didn't exist, and the show called The Clone Wars came out now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you picture this? How I picture it would be. The first season would be right after episode 2, and the first season would end with Anakin becoming a knight. That would be a natural first season ending.
Yep.
And like these are things that you didn't get in Clone Wars 08, but you did get in Clone Wars 03. And then like having Ahsoka would make Clone Wars 03 better. Something you had in 08 that you didn't have in 03. And I really think mixing these shows together and like starting from scratch, you'd end up with mostly 08 stuff. But some of this cool stuff from 03, like the Grievous cough, Anakin becoming a knight, I think a lot of good things can be taken. Yeah, having the Battle of Coruscant in there at the end. I think if you mix these 2 shows together, you end up with a really, really great show.
Yeah, it's also funny because like we've seen throughout here, Max and Pete and I talked about the last 2 weeks. There was stuff in the first 2 seasons that they clearly looked back at and said, "Oh, we could expand on this, do full Clone Wars episodes." So like Ilum, I know was a big deal there. The one where Kit Fisto, like on Mon Cala trying to lead the or that because a 4-episode arc in season 4. Like this stuff that they liked here and they brought forward.
Yeah, so it would be nice if they were to take a little more, maybe. I think it was a little crazy that we start Clone Wars with the movie and he's already just a knight. I feel like we miss a lot of time there.
Yeah, so in your mind, you're retconning it so that like this was like that we had a whole season where he was like running around the Padawan Brave fighting wars.
That would be cool.
It would be cool.
I do wonder. I bet you someone on YouTube or Reddit they put together like I know there is for Clone Wars 08. There's like a chronological order list. Could they do a list that also integrates Clone Wars 03? I think probably you have to scrap chunks of it, like the whole portion with the Saj Ventress. Obviously, she can't be dead before Clone Wars 08, but like you could include the episode with the knight, with him being knighted, or you can include the portion of the Battle of Coruscant because it kind of slots into Clone Wars 08 chronologically.
Mace Windu kicking ass could fit in, but it's not really tied into anything.
That would be great.
That's
And
something that's needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Needed. I said all the time, growing up, I always thought Mace Windu was the coolest. And I go back and watch the movies when I got older, and I'm like, he's barely in them.
Yeah.
He does nothing. He kills Jango, and that's it.
Did you notice that he has a purple Jedi starfighter?
No.
I thought that was a nice touch. They gave him a purple Jedi starfighter to go along with his purple lightsaber.
Yep. All right. So let's go ahead now. Let's go to the MVP, LVP board here to update where we are for the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars 03. So, Nick, you want to go over what you added to the board here? Because I know season 1, you gave Dooku an MVP.
Yeah, let me find my messages to you so that way I could.
I know exactly what you did, so I can tell.
I have him. Okay, I have him. I just wanted to have them in front of me. Dooku MVP. He was really cool. I feel like he was the only character that had any dialogue maybe in season 1, and that's why. And I feel like he was strong based on his dialogue.
Well, you zeroed out Pete's LVP point for him, so.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. You also jumped on the Anakin negative train, LVP train, so with me and Max. So
I did. I kind of explained that before too. Really just the whininess and bad sounding voice acting.
Yep. And then season 2, you opted on Mace Windu, which is the correct decision for MVP. LVP was the battle droids. Why?
They are horrible. I know they miss and stormtroopers miss too, but this is crazy. They're not even close.
Yeah.
They never came close to hitting one shot the entire show.
Plus, Mace Windu, they had basically a number 900 to 1 and lost.
Yeah.
Those are the super battle droids too, not even like the goofy Model 1s.
Yeah, you can really just make battle droids just like you can make it instead you can make it like Confederate Army, you know?
I think battle droids is good because they got the super battle droids, basically the same thing. So
Yeah.
So the board right now, Mace Windu +4, the clear MVP right now. Obi-Wan +1, Dirge +1, Asajj Ventress +1, Dooku 0, the battle droids -1, Shaggy. Yeah, I gave him the LVP point last week, Nick, -1. C3PO got 2 LVP points last week from Max and Pete. Anakin on the board -3. One Anakin point before we make our points here. Got the messages here. You guys like the Qui-Gon appearance in Anakin's vision in season 3?
Oh yeah. Great.
I think that was nice. Good callback.
I did like that we got the vision of Kid Anakin again, which we never see outside episode 1 again.
True.
All right, so MVPs first here. I'm going to start out the board here. It's got to be Grievous. Grievous kicks ass this entire season. Grievous dominates the Republic here. He has a mission. He succeeds his mission. He kills a bunch of Jedi, collects some lightsabers. So Grievous MVP here. Nick, what about you?
I'm not in disagreement with you, but I am going to go another direction. I'm going to give it to Anakin. I don't want to see him in the cellar because I feel like he had a really good season, really strong season, and grew a lot compared to the other two, and was a lot more of a likable character in this season than he was in prior ones. And I would feel bad if he ended up at the bottom of the list.
Max, your MVP.
I think Nick makes a lot of good points, but I am going to go with Grievous, not just because he continues his awesomeness, but because he single-handedly, more or less, abducts the Chancellor. Although I will say it is hard because you know what happens to him in episode 3, and that is all part of this ruse. But taking that out of the equation, just Clone Wars 03, General Grievous.
All right, so we'll also note here, we will show you next week what Pete does. If Pete's going to weigh in off the air about what happened with the Clone Wars 03. So we will show you the final results on the MVP board next week. We do the next part of Micro Month, but LVP section here. Nick, you're up first.
The droids, the battle droids, more specifically. It's unbelievable how bad they are.
Yeah.
They're outnumbered enormous. They outnumber by an enormous amount in the movies. This is times 10, and they still get destroyed. I can't get over how bad they are. Or you know what? Maybe we should change both my answers to the programmer of the droids, because he's the one at fault. You can't blame the computer.
Yeah, Max, who's your LVP?
I had to look up his name. It's Oro Dassyne, Dassyne. He is the general who he's in the first scene where Anakin becomes a Jedi Knight. And he's like, how many Jedi do you think there's going to be? 50 Jedi, 100 Jedi? And then the droid's like, oh, there's 2 Jedi. He's like, what? And then he gets annihilated. So I feel like you got to give it to him. He's the LVP. He not only loses his battle, he miscounts the Jedi. He very much overestimates.
I'm glad you looked up his name because I was just gonna say Techno Union General douche, but like that counts. So I'll go give it extra. So Oro Dassine gets the LVP point from me as well because that guy sucked. All right, so that's the LVPs here. And Pete will weigh in next week. So now we're gonna do the grades here on a scale of 1 to 10. I will refresh the grades for seasons 1 and 2 so far. So here's what we got here. Nick has weighed in. So season 2 is on top with an 8.0. Season 1 is 6.88. Nick, tell us your grades for each season.
It's funny because I thought it was going to go in chronological order, and I was looking at this list real quick, and I was shocked. I was like, wait, what? But I realized that you sorted it from best to worst here. So I gave season 1 a 7.5. I thought it was fine, like a C. I guess should have gave it a 7 in hindsight, but whatever. And I gave season 2 an 8.5. It was just a little bit better, pretty good, and no, I didn't really have any issues with it.
Yeah, so high grades here, Max, for these 2 seasons so far.
Yeah, I think so. I gave season 1 a 7.5 also. Same with Nick. Season 2, I think I gave it an 8. Yeah, I mean it's a good piece of Star Wars. I'd say Clone Wars '08 is better, it's more developed, but it's enjoyable. That's as much as you can ask for out of any media.
All right, so now we go to the grades here as we've done the last 2 weeks on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is worse than 1978 holiday special. 10 is up there with the Prison Break episode of Andor as the greatest piece of Star Wars content of all time. So, Max, your grade.
What's a 9 comparable to?
I'd say 9 is like the tier below, like perfection.
Okay.
The
I'll give it a 9. I'll give it a 9. I was debating between 8.5, but I will give it a 9. I think that the emphasis on a more threaded plot does a lot of service. It shows some of the talents of the writers. I mean, they don't even have a lot of dialogue in here. They still tell this really compelling story. The arc on what was that planet? The Nashan?
Nelvaan.
The arc on Nelvaan, the Battle of Coruscant, Anakin growing as a Jedi and also as falling to the dark side a little bit. I think it's very enjoyable. I don't think it's, I think it could compete with some of the better episodes of Clone Wars '08 comfortably.
All right. I'm going to give it an 8, which for me, that's my high on the series. I've been a little lower than everybody else on this because I do, like, for me, the 2D always is kind of tough for me because I'm not really that style cartoon anymore. But the storyline was good. I think I enjoy it. And Grievous basically brought this grade up 2 points by himself. So I'll give that a 8. Nick, you want to wrap us up?
I'll go right in the middle. I'll go 8.5. I thought it was. I know I gave the last season 8.5 too. I do think it's better, but I feel like 9 would be too much. So I'll go 8.5. It was really good. I have no complaints really. It really bridged the gap really well to episode 3. I was really surprised by that. Obviously I didn't see it beforehand. That was news to me, and I was like, oh wow, that's beginning episode 3. That's pretty cool. So I was really impressed by that. I thought it did a good job. And if this was the Clone Wars and we never got the show in '08, I think it's fine.
It does the job.
Yeah.
And I did also think, again, another point, I got 2 points for Grievous, that point for actually showing us the battle on Coruscant, which we never see anywhere else.
Do you get an answer from Pete on this or no?
Pete is going to get back to us here before next week, so we will have his answers here. And speaking of next week here, we're continuing Micro Month here, Nick. We got another micro show to cover here. Forces of Destiny, Season 1, which this is another 2 series of micro shorts that are actually in canon. They take place throughout, like, they bounce around between the prequel era, Clone Wars, original trilogy, sequel era. They're everywhere. So I believe this is, like, based primarily on the female characters of Star Wars. So, like, there's a lot of Padme, Ahsoka, Leia. There's a lot of variety here. And Max, have you ever seen this show?
I have never seen this show. No, but it's on Disney Plus, I assume.
It is on Disney Plus.
All right, maybe
it started off on YouTube.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's animated.
It's animated. It is canon also, which is something that is notable.
Right alongside the deleted scenes from all the movies.
Yep, it's that kind of canon here. It's the premise of the animated micro series anthology focused on female characters: Princess Leia Organa, Sabine Wren, Jyn Erso, Rose Tico, Ahsoka Tano, Padme Amidala, Hera Syndulla, and Rey. So
There's also I don't know if I may duplicate some of the names that you said here, but Kiara from Solo's in it.
yep.
You said Hera and Sabine and Padme and Rose, and I guess you said everybody else, yeah. But Kiara from Solo is in it as well.
Yeah, notable here, we got some big name of the big name actual Star Wars cast actually voiced their characters here. Daisy Ridley voiced Rey, which is something I did not expect here in this year.
The Maz Kanata girl's the same girl.
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o.
She's in Black Panther, isn't she? Or
Yeah.
no?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Yeah, Felicity Jones did Jyn Erso season 1, not season 2 for some reason here. We got John Boyega back as Finn. Mark Hamill voiced Luke Skywalker.
Kelly Marie Tran did Rose again.
Yeah, so there's a good mix here of
Ooh, and Gina Torres from Suits.
Yep.
Who is the character that she plays? I don't know this character.
Ketsu.
Anyu. I don't know, but I mean,
is that Sabine's like friend from Rebels who was like the fellow
former strange friend of Sabine Wren. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, she's in a few Rebels episodes.
Yeah.
So and she was voiced by Gina Torres in Rebels also.
Yeah, I'm also actually watching Suits right now, Max. So
where are you up to?
I'm in the middle of season 2. I just started it.
Great show. Very good show.
As of recording today, I just watched episode 6 of season 2, where Harvey's playing poker to win a case.
That's definitely what lawyers do. You can ask Nick and Nick's brother and me.
You and Phil are playing poker in the back rooms of this house.
That's how we win all of our cases. Yeah. No, Gina Torres is great though. I think she's also on Firefly, but yeah, she's a great actress.
A lot of things. But Max, thanks again for coming on this Clone Wars journey with us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be back anytime you guys need another take.
Yep. And Nick, people want to follow us on social media. One more time, how can I do that?
You can follow at Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok. Earlier, when you asked me, I said it out of order, and I always say that order that way. I just said it, but earlier I said a different order, and I was really thrown off by that. I don't know why I did that.
I think Max might have incepted your mind there with the Twitter X thing. May have confused you.
Maybe.
All right, you guys will follow me on social media, mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. As I said last week, there's a great episode just on the Suffering podcast. I have no idea what it's about yet because I don't know what's going to talk about sports-wise today, but
you're probably talking about the Yankees being 47-0.
You might be on this week. Why don't we talk about the NFL schedule at this point?
True.
All right.
I can't believe Taylor Swift ran onto the field and caught that touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the NFL going to beg her next year to actually do the halftime show, not just be on TV. All right. That's it for us this week. We'll be back next week to continue Micro Month with Forces of Destiny Season 1. But until then, may the Force be with you.